a chair and join me today. Out in my workshop, I'm tinkering away. Wand above staring down on me. Wonder what my next project will be. Working on my Johnson, my Mercury Mark 10. Firing up my StarCraft to fish again. Grab your friends and your dog is too, to watch Tim's Workshop on my YouTube.
Hey, welcome to Tim's Workshop. Out here in the garage today. Going to be continuing on with the 1965 Evinrude 3 horsepower outboard motor on the magneto plate, and showing you a few things about how this thing goes together, or if you have to take it apart like I did to put some new spark plug cables on. Okay, I had to adjust the camera down so you could see exactly what I'm looking at here. Got my ohms meter here, analog type. You could use a digital on these too, but I like the analog. You got to have the right settings for measurements. And this one here, I set it on 1K. It also has 10,000 too, but I use it on the 1,000. So when you take one of these apart to put on new spark plug wires, right, like I did, you have to fold these keepers. Just don't take them all the way off. Just loosen them up, swing the arms out of the way so you can get the spark plug cable through there. This one here, I was able to get it underneath here and pull it through, so you don't have to take this off. I took the coils off when I did this, and the reason why is because when you put the new spark plug cable into the coil, the pin goes into the middle of the spark plug cable, but it also has threads on it, so you can twist the cable and it threads itself in. And this is a boot that goes on the cable and the coil. The boots you can put on, but you got to have them on before you screw the new cable in, just so you know. Don't take any of the hardware off. Okay, I took the coils off so I could have the cable up through the hole where it's going to go, but I could get a hold of the coil and the cable and twist it in there, and then put it back in, and then put the screws back in. So all the screws, the hardware, you want to put it back in, just started the threads in them, so you can keep all the hardware together, especially if it's going to be a day or days or weeks or whatever before you get back to it. You want to make sure all the hardware is where it needs to be. So don't take the hardware off and put it in a bucket, because it's just better to have it where you need it, because of the washers, the star washers, you know, for grounding and stuff like that. This bolt here, these two bolts, and there's a couple Phillips head screws down here. That's for putting this onto the plate that's on top of the motor. So that's how you attach it. I made new cables. What I did is I took the old cables, got the length proper, you know, the right length, cut it. I used the same boots, same springs that are inside. I tested it, the coils once they were off, just to make sure they were still good. I tested the, once I put the spark plug cables in, I tested it again with the boots on to make sure I'm getting, it comes out at 6 ohms. So I'll show you here how to test one of these. First off, you got to know which coil you're testing, so you look at the cables here. So this one here is the short cable, and I have to identify as the upper spark plug. So there's a label I got to put back on the spark plug wire to identify that. So first off, we'll have this here. We got it already on. What we're going to test is first the primary coil. So the primary, the green wire down here, and the ground. Now see how it jumps up to 0 on the ohm meter over here? Hopefully you can see that. Turn it around so you can see it better. Get that? You don't want it up here on the black. That's the condenser wire. You want it down here on the green wire. And there we go. So that tests the primary coil winding, which is good. Now we're going to test the spark plug wire and the ground, which would be the secondary winding inside the coil. And there we go. We got 6 ohms. All right. So that's how you test it, to make sure. And you test both of them. And you test it as you go, whatever. You make sure that once you get this all hooked up to your spark plugs, that you're going to get good spark. This is all ready to go. Now the center piece that goes in here between the points, that's on the motor itself. And then when you set this on there, then you check your point gap. And there's a specification for what feeler gauge you use for that. And on the cam that's in the middle, that's the cam that these things ride on, I believe it tells you where the top dead center is. Wheel this around until these things are where it says top, and then you check the gap. Once a gap's set, then you keep churning it, the motor. You keep churning it to make sure it doesn't get any higher than the tolerance of whatever it is, say like 20 thou, right? You don't want it jumping up to 22. You want to make sure wherever it's set, it stays there until it goes back down to 0. Opposite side, being that cam has a mark on it, you go over to that same spot, and then you set this gap over here, and then you double check that as you churn it too, to make sure it's not going higher than specified gap tolerance. Now that's how you set the points. As far as the coils, when you put these screws back in there, there's these little bosses that sit up. You want end of this horseshoe bracket for the coil, you want it even with the boss, the side of the boss. You want these even on both, on this side and this side. Same on the other one. And you want that set right. And then once you have those set even with the bosses, your gap will be right on the flywheel when the flywheel gets put back over the top. And then your gap for your coils is set right. So that's it for that. Moving on to the next step.